Hey everyone, Yoyston here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. Today, Royan and I are coming to you all with our thoughts on the War of the Rohirrim trailers. I say plural because we got an English and a Japanese one, and they're like entirely different trailers. So we actually pretty much got two trailers for this thing. So coming to you all with our thoughts about that. Royan, would you like to start us off? What do we think?
Sure. Just for some clarification for everybody, when we say two different trailers, we pretty much mean that. Now, neither Yoyston or I speak Japanese, and I'm very impressed with anyone who is, but I imagine a lot of this listening base is not. So, but I would still implore you to go and watch it for simply the vibe. There's a lot of completely different shots, and it's shot like it's edited in a very different way, and it's just kind of an interesting way to take a look at how two cultures could look at the same media and create two trailers that would get that, with the purpose of exciting those two different bases. So anyways, like getting down into it, I mean, man, where do I start? Both trailers, specifically the English version, rely heavily on or at least at the start, with shots from Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, and that was actually, I'm sure we talked about it at some point here, but at the very start of this, it was like, Peter Jackson is being credited. Do we know about like what level of involvement he has?
Philippa Boyens is like a writer or a head like producer or like executive on this, but I don't. Executive producer. Okay, executive producer.
Okay.
So, yeah, we still got those vibes, but it's not in the same capacity. He's not a writer. He's not a director, more like he was for the Lord of the Rings films.
Yeah, okay. So he's an executive producer, which can mean a lot of things, and also nothing.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it is interesting, and I did notice that both trailers open with scenes from Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings to kind of ease you into, widen the scope of people that are going to be interested in this. And from my perspective, I think that specifically the English part of this show, getting Americans, I don't know, I can't speak for Europeans, but getting Americans to try anime, if they have not already, is more difficult than you would initially think. And so I think this is playing to that somewhat. But honestly, once that, in my opinion, just a couple fleeting shots of Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, that was like the least exciting part of the trailer. You learned a lot of stuff in the English version about kind of the scope of this. And Yoyston, you want to talk a little bit about what kind of stuff we already knew going into it, and what kind of stuff it seems that they're kind of taking the reins on?
Totally. So I will say, of the big action shots, definitely exciting for me. And I think, but the thing that I love about them is that the sound design feels like the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It feels like Peter Jackson, right? The horns are very similar. Riders of Rohan, right? We get that like voice acting that I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, here we are. We are back. And so what we knew going in is that this is the War of the Rohirrim that happened in the Long Winter. I want to make sure. There's the Long Winter and the Fell Winter. I believe this is, the Long Winter. And this happened a couple hundred years before the War of the Ring, just like the trailer says. It's pretty much, the Dunlendings versus the Rohirrim after their leaders get into a bit of a scuffle, which we do see. At least in the English version, it doesn't seem to be too highlighted in the Japanese version, but pretty much it's like, hey, there's this marriage proposal on the table. Helm sees this as an insult. He sees this as, you're just trying to get the throne because of my daughter and your son. Like, I don't want the throne of the Rohirrim going to the Dunlendings. Let's have we're going to quarrel about this. It seems to give the Dunlendings a bit more agency in this, as well as Helm's daughter, which we'll get to in a second, because she's like a major part of this trailer, and
she's
seems to be
probably the main character.
Yeah, she's definitely going to be the main character, right? So a lot of different actors have agency now in this version of the story than they do in the book. Because at most, Helm's daughter is just a blurb, and then we don't know her fate, we don't even know her name, but we have her name here, it's Hera, right? And so they go outside, there's that brawl, it's like Freckes says, you're going to pay for this with your life, and then we go from there. Now, what seems to be new is that we've got Mumakil, we've got the Haradrim, it looks like, we've got the Watcher in the Water?
Or something similar?
Yeah.
Related,
we've got great eagles, also strange to me. But the rest actually seems to be very like more or less close to the lore. In the Japanese version, probably one of, if not like the standout moment in it. Again, I'm with Roy, and I actually think in terms of pure vibe, the Japanese trailer is sweet.
It's it's awesome.
Yeah, the English trailer is good, but the Japanese version is sweet because it shows Saruman, who's at the end of this tale when he comes in. Freyalaf, who's Helm's nephew, is crowned king, right? If they go that route, and he's gonna be there to be like, "Hey, I could take Isengard off your hands, no problem." So he's gonna be there, they showed that. So off of pure vibe, right? Nerd of the Ring said it too. It's just like this is sweet. So. In terms of scope, that is what we're looking at. So a couple changes, which I'll be honest, are probably if I had to say the worrying parts of the movie for myself is right, how we've got Mumakil chasing, or a Mumuk chasing Hera through like a forest and stuff, and so I'm not exactly sure when, where, what this is.
What is going on?
Yeah. But I trust Philippa Boyens. Like, we all love the Lord of the Rings movies. We get that tie-in to the Lord of the Rings movies with the English trailer to make it feel like, hey, this is going to be the same universe. Sure, it's a different style. Sure, it's a different vibe. But at the end of the day, I saw a comparison to Across the Spider-Verse and right Into the Spider-Verse, right, with those Miles Morales movies. I think they connect into all Spider-Man movies that have come before, and I think this is going to connect into like that into Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings universe, even though, again, like Into the Spider-Verse, it's a different style, like, altogether. So as long as the audience can kind of adjust to the anime style, and that, I'm with you there, I think that's going to be the biggest push for this movie. But if they can get into the style and really just hone in on what's the story being told and the cinematic nature of it, I think it's going to be amazing based on what I can tell.
Yeah, I was pretty excited about something that I took note of is that I was kind of worried that the plot of this would very simply be like Hera's backdrop of, attempting to be a shield maiden, right? Then the actual setting would be like Rohirrim good, Dunlending's bad, evil, aliens from across, wherever. But there was a pretty interesting shot and some voiceover in the English trailer that seemed to indicate that Hera and Wolf have known each other for a long, long time.
Yeah,
which
I like that.
I think that that's very interesting, and I'd love to. It hints to me that there's a more interesting political like backdrop to the show, or more intrigue than simply like the head of the Dunlendings walking in and being like, "I want my son to have your throne."
Yeah. They were on, like, he was an important councilman. He kind of spoke on the behalf in the lore, I believe. Like, this is when the Dunlendings and the Rohirrim were trying to get along more or less. I think there is a political backdrop here. This is kind of the sundering of the Rohirrim and the Dunlending relations entirely. They still weren't great to begin with, those relations, yeah. But now it's just the end of them. All the way pretty much through the War of the Ring, it's bad after this. So yeah, so I would say I'm looking forward to it, right? Placing a lot of emphasis on Hera. Again, just because she's not in the lore, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but Helm needs to be, everybody loves Helm Hammerhand. He needs to be a huge part of this
trailer.
Show.
Spoilers for the trailer. We get to watch him throw some fists.
Some fists. It's even like towards the end of the story, I must imagine, because the snow is coming down hard in the Japanese trailer, but you see him without his sleeves hugging his daughter in the snow. And it looks like he's probably, this is before he, freezes to death. But dude's looking jacked. Dude's looking exactly how everybody's imagining Helm Hammerhand. And now I must imagine that the story's going to end in some sort of different way regarding Hera. Because again, Freyalaf takes power at the end of the day. So there's a very good chance that Hera gets unalived by the end of the movie. So we'll see.
Or something to that nature, yeah.
Something to that effect, right? Because this is where the first line of the Kings of Rohan ends, is in this story, with Helm Hammerhand, because his sons are killed. And then in the story, she doesn't, again, come in at all to play ever again. And so afterwards, it's like, okay, the second line of the Kings of Rohan all the way until Theoden's death. And that ends the second line, with Eomer starting the third. So... yeah, I mean, in terms of the visuals, I love the art style. I love all of that. The characters look awesome, I think.
Honestly, yeah, the style is very exciting, and all of the characters, we had talked previously as some images had come out, like, oh, maybe they're just doing like everybody's got crazy Japanese anime hair, people walking around with like white, blue, green hair. No, just Hera's just this, kind of redhead. Everyone else looks very, normal, but also very stylized. And there's a lot to be said about just the designs of the characters. I think is just very exciting.
Yeah. The environment, perhaps one of, if not the most beautiful Edoras and Hall of Meadowseld shot that I've ever seen is the night shot with the stars in the background. Oh my gosh. It's every bit is just a bit of art. Every scene, every frame is a bit of art. And so, I don't know, like this is going to be something very special, I think. We have to be open to change, right? We have to be open to, as long as they're telling a good story and making sense with the changes that they do. Right? I'm already seeing that people are pretty upset online that Hera is going to be the leading character. Again, I don't think that's a bad thing, and I don't think that's against the lore, because she's mentioned as an important player in the first bit of the story and then absolutely absent the rest of the story. So with her actually being, and we're in Rohan, the Shield Maidens are a big part of that culture, right? This is that, that makes sense. But the Great Eagle is a bit worrying to me, because like what we've said with Rings of Power, I just don't want them to bring in bits of Lord of the Rings that we recognize simply to bring in bits
just because they know that we're going to recognize it, right? Yeah,
exactly. It's like, oh, it's Lord of the Rings, we got to have the Great Eagles. Oh, it's Lord of the Rings, we got to have the Watcher in the Water. Like, we don't need that. You can tell a story that's divorced from the elements that we've known, other than Rohan and the actual story that's in the lore. You can still tell the story and not feature a wizard. You don't. Obviously, in this one, Saruman is a part of it, so we got to have him. But yeah, we can stand on our own two legs with this story. So I'm hoping that Eagle thing and the Watcher in the Water thing isn't an indication that we're going to be going into Moria.
I am hopeful that it's. I can't, because it's outside of like where we've seen it before. I almost feel like maybe they are doing something, like, because it's far enough back in the past where it's like, oh, it's been migrating around. But I would like it so much better if they were just like trying to introduce a new related creature in the, like, a similar species, not the same.
And it's not like the Eagles can't go to Rohan. I mean, obviously we have Gwai here, who saved Gandalf from Isengard, and then like he flew over Helm's Deep and flew Gandalf nearly, I believe, to Edoras.
But
so it's not like
it's
impossible. But yeah,
we've seen a lot of Eagles.
We've seen a lot of Eagles, and so yeah, I think Edoras and the Mumakil again are an interesting piece of this, because that's not a faction that's explicitly present in this war. Again, they could be, but I feel like they had to walk all the way around Gondor to get here, because they would have to. We also have in the Japanese trailer a frost troll, it looks like, or some sort of hill giant or something that Helm looks to be fighting with in the snow. I'm down for that. They're near the White Mountains. Yeah, that sounds sweet. So whatever. I just don't want them to lean into the safety net elements. I want this story to stand on its own 2 feet, to represent the lore well. And again, that's where it's like, if we end in a place that's resembling the lore at the end of this story, that kind of sets up going into Theoden's line through Freyalaf, like I'm good for that. But at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean Hera will die, because we don't know what happens to her. So maybe she just passes on the crown overall, which I could see that happening. Like she goes elsewhere. passes on based on what we can tell about this character. I could see like maybe she's not as political as other people want her to be, especially Wolf, because he wants to marry her. So I could see maybe that being the case too. So that's kind of always a nice thing that I do like about adaptations, is going in and being like, I don't know what happens to this character in the lore. I don't know what happens to Helm's daughter. So I'm actually very curious to see what they do with that and how they kind of wrap up her story. So I think it looks great. I think this is very different from,
I'm very excited about this. Do you want to talk at all about that little tease on the at the end?
I'm glad you said something. That, I have no idea what that's about. The whole, like, Sauron's been collecting, or he has an interest in these rings.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going on with that, but...
It's strange because, so I'm looking at the hand, right, and this is definitely a picture I'll have as a visual in this video as we talk about it, because it's strange. Like, he's collecting rings of power?
Are they rings of power? Are they just rings? Rings. Somebody's looking for rings of power and just picking up every ring they find.
Potentially, and this guy's got like a clawed hand.
So there's gonna be really long nails. Yeah.
Really long nails. I don't know. And so a couple theories that I'll throw out there. Again, this 2-3 second moment is not enough to really go off of, but I don't know. I would say my worry about this, I think there was enough backlash to where I don't think this will happen. Helm Hammerhand was turned into a Nazgul in the Shadow of War game, right? And so like that became part of his lore. After his death, he became a Nazgul. I don't think they do that, but Rings of Power in this story kind of reminds me of that. That brings that to the forefront. I think it could very well be that they're looking for some sort of signet ring, maybe trying to find some heir of somebody, or I'm not exactly sure, to be honest. I don't even know who this character is. I don't know. In the Born of Hope movie, I know a bunch of orcs were collecting rings looking for the Ring of Barahir, trying to find the heir of Isildur. I don't think that, again, that seems far away too. I don't know why we're collecting rings at this particular point. Could it be a servant of Saruman looking for the one ring already, perhaps? He's just like collecting random rings. I have no idea.
Who can say? I think it'll probably come up.
Yeah. Or this could be setting up some sort of like future anime movie that's in the universe too.
We'll have to see how this one goes. But that does seem an interesting idea. I will say one more thing. I kind of just, I'm poking around here, scrolling through this trailer. Only in theaters on Christmas. That's kind of big to me because it's kind of a culture thing here in America that the best movies of the year come out Christmas or Christmas weekend. Those are the ones that the studios put the most weight behind right before, all those Oscar baits, all those big movies. Everyone's off of work and school, so they go to the theaters to see this. That is surprising to me, honestly, because a year ago, this announcement almost felt like an afterthought. I remember latching onto it myself, but I didn't see it get a ton of traction or thought. And so I was kind of worried that this would be a project that didn't get a lot of support, but that does not seem to be the case. It seems to have the weight of the studio behind it, and that's exciting to me. And it from the trailer, the art, it looks great. I'm really looking forward to it. We'll have to see how Rings of Power goes, but if it goes poorly, and I'm not saying it will, but if it goes poorly, this will be a nice thing to just kind of roll into after that season is done. Just kind of get a completely different take on on the universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I totally agree. And only in theaters on Christmas, that means no streaming platforms that it's on. You have to go out and see it. It'll probably get people back in the theaters. Yeah, at least for a while. Yeah. It'll get people back in the theaters just like we were, I say we, but I mean, I guess just mean people 20 years ago for Lord of the Rings.
Theaters have been struggling this year.
Yeah.
So
it is funny that we mentioned the rings thing. I was just scrolling through one more time to see if I missed anything. There's this moment where he's getting ready to throw down, and Helm Hammerhand is taking off a signet ring. Maybe they're looking for his ring. It could be that too, or something like that. There's maybe some significance of that ring. So maybe that's what that is. I don't know.
Maybe.
So
interesting.
Yeah.
I forgot about that scene. Yeah, he takes off. This is so far beyond the scope of this little video, but remember, kids, if you're gonna fight somebody, that's assault. If you fight somebody with big rings on your finger, that's assault with a deadly weapon. Don't do it.
Yeah. He was like, I don't even need these rings. These are deadly weapons. Like, so, yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and this is super exciting. Again, I just hope they, as always, stay close to the lore, and that the changes that they make sense for a reason. That they're well done.
If you're going to make a change, lean into it. Make it make sense. Make it matter. Okay. Yeah. Don't just make changes to just make it feel your own. Make changes because you have it needs to feed into something that you want to do later. That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely. Like show us the reason you made the change. Get us on board with it, and we're down. I mean, I don't know. This is specific for anime, and again, this is why I'm excited about how different of a direction we're headed here with this. But every little frame is such a piece of art. I'm at I noticed this the first time I was watching it when Hera is getting ready to duel with Wolf. She has like her dress on set into her ring or something. I'm sure there's like a some sort of technique there, maybe a parry thing. I don't know, but like just so many frames of this have me enthralled and just curious about what's coming. And they must have to change Wolf's story too. He's killed by Freyalof at Edoras. I imagine that will probably change. So every little piece of this I could watch this over and over so many times and find something new every time. Which again, just like the Lord of the Rings trilogy, that's great. So I would say I'm still most excited for this project out of probably any Lord of the Rings project that's happening right now. So I'm very hyped. I'm super hyped. Any other thoughts, Ryan?
No, I think we've got everything out that that comes to mind. If you haven't seen both trailers, I'd suggest watching it.
I'll link them both in the description here.
Just accept the fact with the Japanese trailer that you're not going to understand what they're saying, but
you don't need to. It's sweet. It's so cool. Oh my gosh, Helm's hammer. We just got to end the video, otherwise I'm going to just keep being like, what is this? Well, this is cool. So, my friends, looking forward to talking more War of the Rohirrim with you all. Thank you all for joining us for today's video. I'm sure maybe we'll get another trailer or two before the release date in December. So looking forward to all of those and more discussions with you, Royan. Thanks to our Valar tier patrons and YouTube members who make all of this possible. Peter Sheppard, John Hume, Rhys Jenkins, Arthur Merlin, Theodore, Andrew Carlisle, and Zoomi. My friends, please subscribe and hit that bell button to join the Men of the West and all the free peoples today. And thank you all for joining us on this adventure. Until the next one.